Welcome. Thank you for signing up. We're here to just talk about the redistricting process, what we're doing as a city, and how that's going to move forward, as well as talk about some of the options that we have put in front of council for consideration. I'm going to talk about this generally to begin with, kind of go over the process. I'm then going to respond to a couple of questions that we've received online and through the feedback forms. And then Carlo Freight will hop on and kind of talk about some of the data briefly. And then we'll take any questions that we may have. I'm John Walker, I'm the city manager. Every 10 years, we get new data from the U.S. Census Bureau, and we, as a city, must reevaluate our election districts to make sure that they have an evenly distributed population. This year, we had a pretty big variance between some of our districts after the census, and so that does require us to redraw those lines. Redrawing the district boundaries is something, and adopting those new districts is something that we can do locally once every 10 years as part of the census process. So that is something that we're doing here locally. It does not have to go to the state legislature. We're not changing the form of government. We're not moving from more or less elected officials. We're simply changing the lines of where those officials' district boundaries are. So one of the things I'd like to show here as I share my screen is the website that we did put up earlier. We wanted to kind of share with everyone what the process is and what we are doing. Our new census numbers show that we're at 30,000 population, just over. We do have a district timeline, redistricting timeline here. I will point out that we do have a minor error. We will introduce an ordinance amending the district boundaries in April, and we look for that to be adopted in May. So we have 2 reads of ordinances in the city. So we would introduce them first read in April, and then have adoption in May at the earliest. We are having this virtual public hearing, public input session, and then on March 15th at 6:30, we will also have one at the Public Safety Building at 4445 Buford Highway. When staff was looking at the census blocks, we identified a couple of options that would bring the population totals within each district to within 5%. And that is our goal that we need to hit, is to have no district outside of 5% of the difference between what the median population distribution should be. So we have those here. Initially, we proposed a blue and a gold. Based on some feedback that we received from the form at the bottom of this page, the feedback form, we've also created a B proposal for both blue and gold. And I'm going to talk about those a little bit right now. Under blue, this proposal changes the line from currently Malone Drive. It pushes the District 2 line to Pierce Drive. And you can see that here. I'm not sure if people can see my arrow mouse. And it also, to achieve a more even distribution, it moves an area, this yellow area, out of District 2 and into District 3. And this brings the population variance within roughly 4%. One district is about 4% off of the median, so that is acceptable. In the B proposal, in the original proposals, we had not changed the district lines of District 1. In these two new proposals, we have changed that line to be essentially Placer Road to Dresden Drive below the airport. And that resulted in a net change of about 40 people in population between the two. One district lost 40 and one district gained 40. So it still is, statistically within the percentage that they need to be. So we feel comfortable with this change. And this addresses the other question that we received in the feedback forms. The two questions we received were essentially this area splitting the neighborhood, and could we change that? And that's what this represents. And then the other question was about Malone Drive, which all of the proposals change this line and move it to Pierce Drive. And that's really been what we focused on in the two proposals. Obviously, the blue proposal, you have some minor changes here. In the gold proposal, we had a pretty significant shift. We shifted this area into District 2, and you can see between the kind of purple and gold what that shift would be. We looked at this basically from a statistical standpoint. The numbers are much more evenly, the population is much more evenly distributed. You can see that I believe everything is within 1% or 1.5%. So all the districts are very close in the same population. These are two proposals, or now 4 proposals that are being provided to council. All of these proposals are valid, and we believe can be adopted by council and fulfill the intent, which is to more evenly distribute the population between the districts. With that, I wanted to turn it over to Carlo. And Carlo, if you could just kind of share with us the census blocks and how that works, and then we can begin to take questions. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, like John said, we have our new redistricting hub, which has a lot of the information that John had gone through. We have here on the left side of the screen, there's a translate widget. If you need.
Carlo, we're not hearing you.
Hello, can you still hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
All right, excellent. I don't know what just happened. It looked like it signed me out. So we have a translate widget here on the left side of the screen. If you need to translate, obviously it's a web-based translation, so it's not perfect, but it can be helpful. When you first load the redistricting screen, you can click through some of these messages that you receive. But what I want to mostly go through is the map resources here available, specifically this redistricting dashboard. So When that loads up, we can click through these messages again. The screen that you come to when you first load the dashboard will show you a map here in the center. And then on the left side, you have the two blue proposals, the original blue proposal and the B alternative. And here on the right side, the two gold proposals, the original and the B alternative. Here at the lower center, you have current population by the current council districts. Each of these sections can be expanded. And you can maximize it to fit your screen. So this shows that kind of great variation between some of the districts as it currently stands. Like John said, we're trying to get each district as close to being equivalent with across all four as possible, which would be a goal of 25% of the population. And each of these proposals that we've come up with and we want you to review and give feedback on comes pretty close to that 25% goal. Here in the center, we have the map, which you can also expand like the graphs. And what you'll see here is when you first bring up the map, you have the districts as they currently are situated, the 4 districts. You can zoom in, get a better view. You can navigate around the map. As you zoom into a certain point, you'll actually see these individual census blocks. Now, John had briefly mentioned census blocks. The census blocks are what we need to base our redistricting boundary realignments to. So with each of these census blocks, we cannot split them, to come up with something that might seem a bit more logical. Legally, we must stick to the census block boundary as it has been defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. And also the populations that we use are these populations that you see on the screen for each census block. These are the ones that were calculated, the estimates that the Census Bureau came up with in Census 2020. You might look at some of these and think, it might not seem quite accurate to you, but legally we have to use them as they were calculated by the Census Bureau. If you look at some of these census blocks, you'll start to see some of what we deal with when we're trying to figure out what is the best place to run a new census boundary, district boundary. You can see here, we have individual blocks. We have one block here that's only 31 people according to the census. And then just beside it, we have one that has 1,400. And then just north of there, we have another block with 1,500. We have one here with more than 300. Here in the mid-city, we have blocks that have between 300 and 500, 600 people per block. So those are some of the difficulties that we face when we're trying to run through some of this redistricting. If you're viewing this dashboard, the way it's intended to be used is you can turn off individual layers. So here I've turned off the current districts, but you still see the current district boundaries. And then you can turn on each of the new proposed district scenarios. Give that a second to load. And there we go. And like John was showing you on the other map, You can see the difference between the current boundary, the current district boundaries in gold, and the new boundary, which goes over into different sections. So you can click through each of these to see that new proposal. This is the alternative B for the blue proposal. And here is the first gold proposal. Right. And give that a second. You can also see the B alternative for the gold proposal. You can also turn off those census block labels. So you see here, it's a little bit easier to read, less busy on the map. If we go back out to the main redistricting hub page, you have the PDF versions of these, which you can load and find a static map, printable map that you can look at. That's what John was looking at earlier. You have the link to the dashboard. We have a user guide explaining how to use just some of the tips that I just ran through, showing it to you. And finally, we have our elected representatives map, which we've always had up on the website, but we've put it here in the hub in case you want to find out more information about your current elected representatives or anything about voting here in Chamblee. We also have a feedback form, which some people have already responded to. This is a survey that you can open up and provide your input on this redistricting process. And I think that is about it. John, is there anything else I should run through?
No, thank you, Carlo.
Right.
And we have Carlo here because he is the GIS master here of this data and can go through this. So if you have any questions specific to the data, Carlo could answer that. I think with that, we're done with the presentation, and would open it up for any feedback or questions.
John, as of now, we don't have any hands raised or questions coming through. We did have a very nice thank you from Paul Suval, saying thank you for putting it all out there in a way that us non-city planners can understand.
Well, thank you. Hopefully this does help both understanding the process and kind of seeing what we were working with and the way the numbers are presented to us. If we don't have any other questions or any questions, I would like to remind everyone that we are going to have another public input session at the Public Safety Building on March 15th at 6:30. That's an hour before the council meeting, and we welcome you to attend. Thank you.